Welcome to a video on how to get good at the Space Cadet, perhaps the most group-orientated character in the game. Players who are able to not only master the power of this aimbot menace but also coordinate effectively with their teammates in forming a space station will be nigh unstoppable and capable of making the entire plant team their bitch. Let's get started. The Space Cadet is a defense class designed not only for massive orgy fests with their fellow cadets but also somewhat easy to use for beginning players. They have 125 health and move at the same speed as every other class. The Space Cadet is one of the 3 classes in the game to have access to a double jump and is also one of 2 classes that can hold down the jump button to slow their descent. Her primary weapon is that of a lock-on laser gun that has a built-in homing system. If enemies are within range, as long as you keep your crosshair on them for at least 2/3 of a second, the weapon will lock on them and track them. If at any time they escape the crosshair, you have 1/3 of a second to keep them in or the lock-on is lost. The weapon fires at 400 rounds per minute and has 42 ammo per clip before needing to take a lengthy 2.5 second reload. Each shot fired can deal 6.5 damage for a normal hit and 7.8 damage for a critical hit. Because of how Space Cadet's weapon functions, it is strongly advised to keep them at mid-range whenever possible, as so that you don't have to constantly keep adjusting your crosshair to account for their erratic movement. Additionally, the double jump allows you to be evasive, as well as secure high ground easily with how much verticality it grants you. So do keep this in mind. The Space Cadet's first ability is the Gravity Smash. This will cause the Space Cadet to suddenly jump into the sky, as a purple circle will appear on the ground beneath you, marking the landing spot. The Space Cadet will hover in the air for 3 seconds, and during the final second, will flip upside down before crashing into the ground. Any plants caught within the blast radius will take up to 125 damage and be knocked back if they survive. This is best used to either finish plants off with a burst of damage or to bait and switch enemies in making them think you're running away, only to turn back at the last second and crush their fucking skull. One thing to keep in mind is that when the Space Cadet flips upside down, they will jolt in the direction you are moving, which if not accounted for may lead you into overshooting your target. Once used, the ability will go on a 15-second cooldown. The Space Cadet's second ability is the Big Bang Beam, but more commonly known as your traditional skill shot. The ability will cause the Space Cadet's weapon to start charging up a power laser, taking just over 1 second to do so. Before firing it, the laser fired can deal 83.33 damage for a normal hit and a clean 100 damage for a critical hit. This makes it great to either initiate fights against enemies, snipe long-range enemies who aren't aware of your presence, or accidentally snipe the acorn of an oak's head, because that definitely was a part of the plan. Once used, the ability goes on a 15-second cooldown. The Space Cadet's final ability, much like acorns, is the Transformation ability, which grants them access to the space station. The transformation takes only a second, though once it is complete you'll be granted complete access to the space station. Not to be confused for a small moon, the space station is a mighty powerhouse that with the right coordination can be nigh unstoppable and unkillable. The space station has 275 health by default, though it can be increased by having up to 3 cadet passengers on board. Each passenger increases the total health of the space station by 125, which means that if you have 4 friends and you all join together onto a single space station, you'll have a massive as fuck 650 health. Bearing in mind, you can still be given over health, and a wizard can still fucking ride on you, practically making you the bulkiest thing to have ever lived. The space station moves at the same speed and retains the double jump and hovering, bit like the flying tree man. It is unable to sprint, but it still can in a technical sense, though we'll get to that later. The space station's primary weapon is that of a 3-round Big Bang Burst, effectively a Garden Warfare 2 Super Commando but without the constant reloading. The weapon fires at 700 rounds per minute with a 0.25 buffer between bursts, has 54 ammo per clip before needing to take a 1.5 second reload. Each shot fired can deal 9.2 damage for a normal hit and 11.04 for a critical hit. This powerful primary weapon means that even facing a space station with no cadet passengers will still be quite a fearsome opponent to face, and the large clip size allows you to easily go head to head with beefy opponents such as Citrons or the Flying Tree Man. The space station's first ability is Space Force. Now, remember when I said that the space station could still sprint in a technical sense? Well, that is this technical sense, for whilst it is active, the space station is granted a 25% speed increase, and on top of that, all abilities for all crew members recharge nearly 3 times faster. Your primary fires 30% faster, and all passenger primaries fire 15% faster. The buffs provided last for 7.5 seconds. This is extremely effective when coordinating pushes, as well as outright blasting your way through the enemy team, since the faster fire rate and immensely shorter cooldowns allows not only for you to chew through an enemy's health quickly, but for your passengers to provide their utility quickly, and also take down enemies within range. Once the ability's duration has concluded, it will go on a 22-second cooldown. The space station's second ability is Crater Maker. This laser of absolute death causes the space station to shoot into the sky, whilst projecting a powerful as fuck laser into the ground. The laser lasts for 4 seconds, and whilst active, the space station's hitbox will be placed higher than normal, so it cannot really fit under low ceilings. The damage output of this laser is so fucking high that it cannot be realistically measured at all, but what we can be certain about is that it is actually fucking ridiculous with how much damage it does, since it can pretty much instantly kill anything that dares to exist underneath it. This arguably makes it a very powerful damage tool, since even the bulkiest of plants like the Flying Tree Man and Citron's shield cannot survive a Crater Maker's wrath. The ability is that powerful. It has an initial cooldown of 5 seconds when you first become the space station, and once the ability has concluded, it will go on a 20-second cooldown. The space station's final ability is the transformation back into a normal space cadet. Unlike the Flying Tree Man, where there is a 20-second cooldown before you can transform back into him, the space station has no such cooldown, so you are free to transform back and forth between the two forms whenever you like. But we're not done quite yet. Since Space Cadet is a team-up class, we now have to cover the passengers on a space station and their ability set, because Jesus Christ, this video isn't fucking long enough. The passengers on a space station retain the same primary weapon as a normal cadet, but are unable to move around by themselves, since if it wasn't plainly obvious, you're attached to a space station, dipshit. Whilst attached to the space station, you share its total health pool, as well as gain access to 2 new abilities at your disposal. The first of these abilities is the Asteroid Shield. This projects a shield in the direction of wherever you're facing, and stays active until the shield is destroyed. The shield has 100 health and does not regenerate any health back at all. Whilst it doesn't sponge a lot of damage by itself, considering that a single loaded station can potentially have 3 of these shields up and running simultaneously, they can provide quite a bit of cover if the station is under attack. Once destroyed, the shield will go on a 22-second cooldown. The other ability you gain access to is of a hands-on torpedo missile. When engaged, the player will take control of a fast-moving missile for the next 10 seconds. If the missile makes direct contact with an enemy, it will deal 100 damage for a direct hit and up to 50 for the splash. This makes the missile great for either scouting out certain locations and calling them out, or as a source of burst damage at point-blank range, mainly thanks to its generous splash damage. Once the missile explodes or expires, the ability will go on a 20-second cooldown. Passengers are capable of leaving and joining the space station at any time, provided there is room for them. If the owner of the space station chooses to leave, then one of the passengers will be assigned as the captain. A space station is also immune to the effects of Gotify, both for itself and any passengers on board. However, if a space station is taken down, all members of the station will not be able to be resurrected, so do keep this in mind. In terms of strengths, the Space Cadet space station can effectively be one of the most powerful enemies in the game if the right communication and effective skills are present amongst the captain and passengers. Her homing function also makes her somewhat approachable for newer players, and her advanced vertical mobility can make her an oppressive foe to face, especially if used efficiently to evade attacks. However, in order to maximize your performance, you must have an assembled team willing to communicate and coordinate, which if neither are present, can often result in your space station easily being focused down. Space Cadet's homing also is not effective at long range and up close, so if you ever find yourself in those scenarios, you'll likely not be able to get the homing on your side. Now in terms of upgrades, because of the immense number of options and scenarios that you can be in as a space cadet, I shall be limiting it to 2 upgrades per form, excluding the station, as opposed to the usual 3, so that we're not here all fucking day. For the standard cadet, 2 upgrades I would greatly recommend would be efficiency and bullseye. Efficiency reduces the reload duration of your weapon and can stack up to 3 times for up to 10 seconds, which given how long Space Cadet's reload duration is, can prove to be very useful in making it much quicker to respond. And bullseye grants additional chip damage during the charge up phase of the Big Bang Beam, which can make its potential damage output significantly higher, especially for such a low price. For the space station, the upgrades I would recommend would be afterburners and both health regeneration upgrades. Because the space station has the potential to have so much health, having a fast responding health regeneration will be key to surviving without outside assistance. And as for afterburners, well, and lastly, for the station passengers, the 2 upgrades I would recommend would be Ammo Eater and Rocket Fueled. Ammo Eater grants additional ammo for your primary weapon whilst blocking damage with the shield, making it great for keeping up focus fire. And Rocket Fueled triples the duration of your rocket, allowing you much more flexibility on how you use it. Thanks to this clusterfuck of a guide, you will now know the ins and outs of this cadet on crack and can easily slay the entire enemy team with the right amount of communication and skills. Be sure to come back for the next episode next week. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more shit like this. Have fun.